On this Sunday night, heading home. Hope for frustrated Canadians trapped on a cruise.
We're feeling a little abandoned here.
Plus, lifting the quarantine at CFB Trenton. Blockade concerns.
We know our lessons from the past.
What's needed to get the trains back on track. The Brits keep a stiff upper lip during another severe storm.
Nature will just do what it's going to do.
And friend to friend.
I'm just forever indebted.
The life-saving gift that's rekindled a relationship.
Global National with Robin Gill.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Hundreds of Canadians have received the news they've been waiting days to hear. They can finally go home. Ottawa has chartered a plane to bring back to Canada the 255 Canadians quarantined on the Diamond Princess cruise ship. But their medical journey isn't over. Those passengers will now have to undergo another 2-week quarantine here at home. Meanwhile, the 398 Canadians currently at CFB Trenton have received word their quarantine will be coming to an end as early as Friday. Mike Armstrong has our top story tonight.
The number of people infected on the Diamond Princess is still rising. Japan announced Sunday there are 70 more cases for a total so far of 355. For the passengers still on the ship, that's 27 days in quarantine and counting. Sunday, the U.S. started taking healthy Americans off the ship, and they're starting to see the light at the end of a long tunnel.
Very soon, not yet, but very soon, we will be stepping foot outside.
Now, the Canadian government is still working on its plan to bring Canadians home. It's chartered a plane, and the operation should be this week. What we do know is where they'll be taken, this convention center in Cornwall, Ontario. The passengers will be screened in Japan before leaving, flown to the Trenton military base, checked again, and then moved to Cornwall. They'll spend 14 days being monitored for symptoms. Cornwall's mayor posted a message on Facebook Sunday saying she's heard concerns from citizens on whether the center is a suitable quarantine facility.
It is frustrating that I don't have more information from the federal government that I can provide to residents. I really don't have as much detail as I would like to have at this time. Not at all.
A Quebec couple from the ship isn't making the trip back. Diane and Bernard Ménard have tested positive. One of their daughters says they were moved this weekend to a military base in Tokyo. She says they're in a quarantine room together with light symptoms, something similar to a mild flu. Now, the quarantine in Trenton continues, but there too the end of the tunnel is coming into sight. Li Zhang is with his wife and 2 children. He was very happy Sunday to show off a letter he received this morning. It says the first group that arrived could be released this coming Friday, the second group 4 days later.
A lot of people want to go home.
Zhang says the mood is positive. People are allowed outside to talk to each other, just not too close.
Of course, you keep a safe distance, which is 2 meters away.
There is a Canadian permanent resident from the Diamond Princess quarantine who's headed back to North America, but to the U.S. Spencer Fehrenbacher lives in B.C., but he also has an American passport. He wanted to return to Canada, but decided because the U.S. trip was happening first, he'd take that option. He'll be doing 14 days in quarantine at a military base in California, and then return home to Langley, B.C. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
The Canadian Federation of Nurses Unions is calling on Ottawa to do more to protect frontline healthcare workers from outbreaks like COVID-19. The labour organization says safety protocols from the Public Health Agency of Canada are inadequate because they assume the virus can't be spread through the air. They say the science hasn't confirmed that yet, and the nurses' unions want the government guidelines to include greater care until they're 100% sure. The Federation believes the current protocols may be putting healthcare workers and patients at risk.
It's like a firefighter. They don't know what they're going to have when they jump into a building, so they're well protected from head to toe. When we enter a room with a potential infectious, contagious patient, we have to be protected from head to toe because we can't be analyzing is it airborne or droplet.
The federal protocols are in line with the World Health Organization, but the Ontario government and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control have recommended higher standards. The Public Health Agency of Canada has not responded to a request for comment. In China, authorities say their efforts to contain the outbreak are beginning to work. The country says just over 1,900 new COVID-19 cases were confirmed today. The overall number of cases reported in China is now more than 71,000. More than 1,700 people have died. In Hubei province, where the outbreak is concentrated, millions of people have been ordered to stay home. Most businesses, except those selling essential supplies, remain closed. Some breaking news now out of Ottawa. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has cancelled a planned trip tomorrow to Barbados. He's being criticized for being absent during nationwide demonstrations in support of an anti-pipeline protest in northern BC. The blockades have caused mass disruption to rail services across this country. And there's no sign of a resolution anytime soon. Canada's Indigenous Services Minister spoke to Global News today about what might be next as Ottawa tries to end the impasse. Here's David Akin.
It was early evening Saturday when Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller emerged from an 8-hour meeting with leaders from the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte. Members of that First Nation have blockaded a vital CN rail line east of Belleville, Ontario, since February the 7th.
The rule of law is also very...
Sunday, on the West Block with Mercedes Stevenson, Miller talked about that meeting.
They were very suspicious of me going in there. They thought it was perhaps a trick. It wasn't.
He said he was warned not to go to the blockade, but he thought that was the wrong move.
This was an opportunity to show a little bit of trust, talk to people who were very fearful standing out there feeling targeted by the entire country.
And Miller described the situation as both volatile and compelling.
We know our lessons from the past, that people can get hurt.
It sounds to me like you're very concerned about violence here.
Absolutely. We all should be concerned.
In addition to supporting the Wet'suwet'en of northern BC, this Mohawk First Nation has its own reasons for protest, including outstanding land claims, a continuing boil water advisory, and what it says is not enough federal funding. No one from the First Nation or the blockade would speak to Global News on camera about the Miller meeting, though off camera some say they are not optimistic of a quick resolution. Miller is one of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's closest friends. The two first met in high school. Miller was elected in 2015 to represent a downtown Montreal riding. He has served as a Canadian Forces reservist and is a lawyer by training. And he has recently learned to speak Mohawk. All those attributes will now be put to the test to help solve a crisis that is causing serious economic harm to the country.
We also have to look at ourselves as Canadians and say, do we use every peaceful method to resolve this situation? And that's the path that I prefer. It's frustrating to many. I've received many emails, calls, discussions about how people are suffering, the economy is suffering, there are fuel shortages that are imminent, and that weighs heavily on my mind.
Miller has given the Prime Minister some recommendations, though he would not say what they were, and he could not say when or how the blockade will be lifted. And so in the meantime, the blockade remains in place, and the federal cabinet will discuss next steps early next week. Robin?
David Akin in Ottawa. Thanks, David. Large parts of Britain are experiencing record flooding. The country's National Weather Service has issued over 250 flood warnings for England, Scotland and Wales. Storm Dennis has deluged the UK, bringing a month's worth of rain in just 48 hours to South Wales. That region has been bearing the brunt of the country's second severe storm in a week. As Jennifer Johnson reports, the Army had to be called in.
Storm Dennis is roaring across Britain. Thousands of homes and businesses damaged by high winds and heavy rains. The storm, described as a bomb cyclone, triggered nearly 600 flood warnings and alerts in England alone Sunday, more than any other day on record. Dozens of other warnings have been issued in places across Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. Authorities say residents need to protect themselves from life-threatening conditions.
We ask the communities, people who to understand their local flood risk and to take action. We're advising people just don't drive through floodwater, don't take that chance.
Emergency boats have had to rescue residents from dozens of villages as rivers burst their banks, forcing people to flee their homes.
I'll try and keep a level head, keep a sense of humour. You know, and you can only do what you can do. At the end of the day, nature will just do what it's going to do. Exactly. And there's not much you can do to stop it.
As winds create enormous waves in the North Atlantic and North Sea, the bodies of two men have been pulled from the water in separate searches. Inland, Army soldiers have been deployed to try and stop the widespread flooding.
I've got guys behind you filling sandbags and just putting out some flood defences.
Winds have reached hurricane strength. A witness posted this video online showing a passenger plane struggling to land at London's Heathrow Airport, hovering over the tarmac as it fought dangerous crosswinds. This is the second major storm in a week to hit Great Britain. Deadly Storm Sierra also brought flooding, heavy winds, and more terrifying video of planes trying to land in England. Traveling by air or rail is almost impossible now. Flight and train service cancellations have stranded thousands of travelers. Among those in limbo, many families trying to leave for vacation as British schools start their midwinter break, now forced to wait until Dennis moves on. Jennifer Johnson, Global News.
A state of emergency has been declared in Mississippi as it deals with some of the worst flooding the state has seen in decades. One major cause for concern is the Pearl River in Jackson. It's been swelling from days of heavy rain. Water levels have reached close to 11 meters, and the river is predicted to continue to rise just over half a meter heading into Monday. Many homes in the area are already underwater.
This is a historic event. It's unprecedented in the last 35 years. We haven't seen flood levels like this in the area since 1983.
Many people were only given 24 hours to pack up their belongings and leave. The government estimates more than 2,400 structures could be affected by the flooding. Coming up, the e-cigarette black market and how easy it is for kids to get their hands on these products. It's illegal to sell e-cigarettes and vaping products to minors in Canada, and yet the devices remain popular among teens. That's because it's easy for kids to get their hands on these products. Global National's Heather Yerkes-West has been looking into the gaps that allow the law to be broken.
Rayanne Algandor says nearly everyone at her Calgary high school vapes.
Almost every kid I see has one.
Here in Alberta, you must be at least 18 to purchase e-cigarettes or other products, but Algandor says younger teens at her school seem to have no problem purchasing the products both in stores and online.
Convenience stores, Max, 7-Eleven, anywhere. And some kids sell them.
It's very tricky to figure out which online retailers are complying or not. What I can tell you is that when people have gone out to look at compliance in stores in general, the compliance has been less than you would hope.
Under Canadian law, convenience stores and vape shops must verify a customer's age before selling products, but online proof of age varies from site to site.
For example, if you want to buy from IQOS, which is from one of the tobacco companies, I had to actually send a picture of my driver's license. Companies like Gill have quite good age verification online.
Third-party sales sites like Facebook Marketplace and Kijiji have both banned the sale of vaping products. We put that to the test. We found no vaping products were available for sale on Facebook, but on Kijiji there were plenty up for grabs. In a statement, Kijiji says, "We commit significant resources towards the detection and prevention of activities that infringe our policies, asking that users let us know if they see an ad that they think is illegal." Advocates say the rules need to be better enforced across the board.
We'd like to see more inspections of stores on a regular basis. Test shoppers should be used to ensure that there are high levels of compliance, and the enforcement should be parallel to what we see on tobacco.
Health Canada says it regularly inspects retailers, including those online, for compliance, visiting 3,000 stores in the last 6 months alone. But despite those efforts, from Algandor's perspective, e-cigarettes haven't become any more difficult to get.
Everyone has one. Everyone.
Heather Yerkes-West, Global News, Calgary.
In Costa Rica, police seized 5.8 tons of cocaine this weekend, the biggest drug bust in that country's history. The drugs were found in over 200 suitcases inside a shipping container bound for the Netherlands. Authorities say they were being smuggled under the guise of a shipment of ornamental flowers. One suspect, a 46-year-old man, has been arrested. The United Nations is calling on world powers to stop violating an arms embargo aimed at curbing a bloody civil war in Libya. The UN's Deputy Special Envoy for Libya spoke out about the problem after meeting today with foreign ministers in Munich. She says several countries backing rival factions in Libya have repeatedly violated the UN-backed embargo. She called for them to be held to account.
I think on numerous occasions, the arms embargo has become a joke. And so we all really need to step up here. Libya is awash in weaponry and now advanced weaponry, and that's very dangerous for regional peace and security, not to mention international peace and security.
Libya has been in turmoil since 2011, when a civil war led to the downfall and death of dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Countries with interests in the war, including Turkey and the United Arab Emirates, renewed a pledge today to uphold the arms embargo. Still ahead, a new way for investors to stake their claim in the art world for a fraction of the cost. For anyone interested in owning a piece of high-priced art for a fraction of the cost, it may be possible. A New York company is buying artwork and then selling shares in it to its customers. There's profit potential, but it isn't limited to art. In the past few years, these fractional ownership structures have sprung up for vintage cars, racehorses, and comic books. Ross Lord reports.
The art world is full of high-priced products.
This is an 1881 landscape by Claude Monet. It's one of our favorite offerings that's available now. So this is an important $7 million painting that we're offering to investors as of recently.
Don't have $7 million kicking around? Not necessary. Not anymore. A New York startup is billing itself as the first company that allows anyone to invest in multi-million-dollar paintings for as little as $1,000 American.
We have 36,000 investors signed up today. So investors range from very small investors who are in college to larger investors that are viewing this as a serious allocation of a portfolio.
And I shall sell it then. I will bring the hammer down at $139 million.
When the company sells the paintings to a collector, it shares profits with its clients. If you're thinking there must be a catch, there is. Masterworks charges 1.5% per year, and it takes 20% of future profits. And like any investing, there's always the chance of betting on a losing proposition.
You do have that appreciation, but you also have the risk of losing all your money, right? If you buy this painting for $1 million and then 10 years later they want to sell it and they only could sell it for $740, you can still lose money on it.
It's a model that could prove successful not just in the U.S., but potentially in Canada too. According to the most recent numbers from Statistics Canada, the Canadian auction market for paintings and other visual arts was already worth a staggering $776 million in 2016, a 42% increase from 2015. Are art shares a new way to diversify investments or a risky venture in a market that's far from guaranteed? The choice is in the eye of the beholder. Ross Lord, Global News.
Up next, the Canadian baseball world mourns the loss of a Blue Jays legend.
Fernandes lobs one to right. It falls for a hit.
The Toronto Blue Jays are mourning the loss of one of their greats. Tony Fernandes, a five-time All-Star and one of their best-ever infielders, has died at the age of 57. Born in the Dominican Republic, Fernandes was signed by the Jays in 1979 when he was 17. He played 12 seasons with them, including in 1993 when they won the World Series. In a statement on Twitter, the Jays described Fernandes as one of our club's most celebrated and respected players, who left an equally indelible mark in the hearts of a generation of fans. Family hasn't confirmed how Fernandes died, but he had long struggled with kidney problems. Over the last few weeks, he was reportedly in hospital due to complications from kidney disease. Kidney disease is on the rise in Canada, and so is the demand for organ donations. According to the latest data from the Canadian Organ Replacement Register, there were over 1,700 kidney transplants in 2018. In that same year, over 3,000 people were still on the wait list, and the average wait time for a transplant is 4 years. But this week, one man is finally getting the gift of life, and it's all thanks to friendship.
I'm so nervous.
Stephen Gillis and Michael Tegan spend a lot of time together, and they're just hours away from sharing a different kind of bond. One is giving the other a kidney.
I know it's not a cure, it's a treatment, but it's a huge treatment to get me out of the dialysis chair.
Gillis has a rare disease that attacked both his kidneys on top of having Crohn's disease.
We're a match. I'm going to give you my kidney. What? Yeah! For real? Mm-hmm.
Last April, Tegan, a friend Gillis hadn't seen in a decade, surprised him with the promise of his kidney. Gillis has gone through surgeries to prep him for the transplant while enduring dialysis. What has been the hardest part, going through what you've had to go through or the anticipation of this surgery?
Mentally, it's really difficult. All this attention has been overwhelming. Just the whole experience, also just trying to understand, you know, how amazing Michael is for doing this, and knowing that there's other people in need. It's not just me, but I'm the one that's getting it. It's hard to accept sometimes, so sometimes it comes with a little bit of guilt, because, you know, there's other people that need help.
10 months later, they're on track for surgery, or as Tegan calls it, a kidney relocation. Was there ever a moment when you thought, I can't do this?
Absolutely not. No, nothing more to say. It's been full steam the whole time.
Studies show that those who receive living organs have longer functioning kidneys. But it's not easy to be that person who steps up.
I always have so much respect for people who come forward as donors. It's just an incredible thing to do, and it's an incredible gift to give and sacrifice to make.
Tegan has never spent time in a hospital or undergone any surgery, but he's prepared for any risks.
I'm a little nervous, but more just excited to help to make this happen. Yeah.
There have been countless tests and counseling sessions. Now they're more than ready for the surgery. And along the way, there's been a newfound friendship.
I'm kind of at his bidding for the rest of his life, because I'm just forever indebted. He's a hero. And a great example for others.
And that is Global National for this Sunday. I'm Robin Gill. Tonight, Your Canada is downtown Vancouver. Thank you for watching. Good night.